Hello, everyone. This is Amy Waninger from Lead at Any Level. And I have something a little bit different today. I had the absolute pleasure of speaking last week to the National Agro Marketing Association. And I want to tell you about some things that I learned there. But first, I want to be clear this is a live broadcast, but it's not a live broadcast. I'm recording this and pre recording this. I've got a doctor's appointment during my normal slot of 11 o'clock Monday morning. Eastern time. And so I wanted to make sure that I got this to you when you expected to see it. But just know that this is pre recorded. However, I will be coming back after my doctor's appointment and I will check all of the comments that you left me and respond to all of those. So please be active in the comments, be active in the chat, and know that I will get those messages, I promise, and I will respond to them. Now, real quick, what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit different. It's somewhat about managing across generations or teamwork across generations. But it's also what I love most about being a professional speaker, trainer, and consultant. And if you are somebody who plans meetings, corporate meetings or conference events, if you are somebody who, places trainers in your company, this is a special I hope a special treat for you and kind of a behind the scenes look at why people like me do what we do. And if you know somebody who is a conference organizer or meeting planner for a company, please share this video with them because I think it's important for them to see the impact of the work that they do. So here's what I want to share with you. This feels a little silly, so I'm going to try it anyway. But I was speaking this week at the National Agro Marketing Conference, and a big shout out to the Ag Speakers Network and Rich Tiller over there for bringing me in and representing me in that capacity. I was so blown away by this conference because they did such a good job of engaging the full complement of their members, from college students to college alums, all the way up through, the upper echelons of their industry. And they really had something for everybody at this conference. And the young people were so engaged. A lot of organizations are struggling right now with how to engage younger professionals or even build pipelines from college or from trades into their organizations. And this was something that I thought that NAMA, the National Agro Marketing Association, did very, very well at their conference. The other thing I thought they did really well, of course, was bringing me in to speak, but we'll get to that in a second. So if that's something that you're struggling with in your organization, take a look at what some other associations, companies are doing to engage young people to kind of build that talent pipeline into your industry. But what I wanted to talk to you today about is I got a question on the morning of the event. So the conference ran Wednesday through Friday. I was speaking on Thursday afternoon. And I went to breakfast and was sitting there talking to some folks. And the woman seated next to me said, "Well, what do you love most about the work that you do? What do you love about being a conference speaker?" And I said, "Wow, that's a great question." And honestly, it had been so long since I'd been to a conference that that I actually had an answer. Like, I couldn't think of what that answer was because I thought, well, it's great to be on a stage, right? Because I was just thinking, like, it's going to be great to be on a stage again after being on Zoom for, almost 2 years. I had a couple of live events in the middle of the pandemic, but it's been a while. And I said, I guess, I'm really excited. What I'm most excited about today is getting back up on a stage in front of real people. But it was immediately after I got done with my talk that I realized and I remembered exactly what I love so much about live events. And what I love so much about live events, you're going to think this is so funny, is these little cards that people fill out at my events. And I started doing this because I realized that people don't always hear what I say, they hear what they're primed to hear. So they come into the room with all these expectations about what the session's going to be about, and they come into the room with the problems that they brought in, from work or from a conversation they had earlier that day. And so really there's sort of a window of what they're able to hear in what I present or what I say. And the their takeaways are always a little bit different and unique, and sometimes I get surprised by what's in them. But I always ask my audiences at these conferences, what's the one thing you'll do differently as a result of today's session? Because I really want to know What did they hear? What impact did that session have? And so at this particular event, I'm going to share this with you real quick. So this is me right before I went on stage, and on stage was a misnomer because I was actually walking around the tables of the group. Um, but I just want to shout out to NAMA for just a phenomenal event, for having photographers on site, having the rooms ready to go. It was such a professionally done conference, and I really appreciated that. But here's what people said after the event. So I was there to present the topic, growing together, teamwork across generations. And this is something that you may be struggling with in your organization, as you struggle to, retain talent, especially young talent, or attract young people into your organization, younger professionals. And so what I really wanted to do in this program was help people understand a couple of different things. One, yes, generations have different needs and different desires and different motivations than other generations in their workplace. But they also bring different skills and different experiences and different perspectives that are valuable to the organization. So that was one piece of it, right? Is the generational piece. But the other piece is, look, we're all people, right? We're all individuals. And so even within those generational lenses, we all have unique experiences. We all have unique perspectives, and we all experience the world just a little bit differently. So even though this aspect of diversity and inclusion around generation was front and center, I wanted to make it clear, number one, that's not the only thing. But number two, we can really lean into this and really pull out some great nuggets from people at all stages of their careers. But what I said doesn't matter. What I think I said doesn't really matter as much as what the audience thought I said. And so I want to share with you some of the takeaways. Now, I had people in the room that were baby boomers, uh, Generation X, millennials or Gen Y, and Generation Z. So there were people in there from all four of the predominant um, generations that are in the workforce today. I don't think we had any traditionalists, which would be people who are um, you know, informed, their life experiences informed by like the Great Depression and World War II, but from boomers to Gen Z. So four generations were very well represented in the room. Here were their takeaways, and it's not broken out by generation, but you might get some insights as to who said what. Okay. So here's what one person said. They said, ask my boomer and Gen Z employees how they'd prefer to be supervised and in what and how they work best. So this is something that this person's going to do differently as a result of the program. And I'm sharing this with you for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want the folks at NAMA to see the incredible impact that they've had on their members, and not just their members, but when their members go back to work, on the impact on those organizations, on the employees, on the customers, and on the industry that they serve. But also to see that these are things people didn't know before they walked into my session, or they weren't doing before they walked into this session, that they're going to do differently. And I have two reasons I'm telling you that, which I'll get to at the end. So this person's going to just ask their boomers and Gen Zs, how do you like to be supervised? How do you like to work? This individual generation says generations are not based just on date of birth, and finding common ground is the key to a successful relationship. So I think this came from a part where I was talking about, having an us versus them mentality in the workplace around generations. And, instead of engaging with people on a personal level, right, we tend to back off because we think, well, they're not like us for whatever reason. This person says, talk to individuals about their internal motivations. This person in my audience said, lead my team of Gen Z more intentionally, setting clear expectations and timelines, and offering more encouragement, because we talked about what Gen Z needs in the workplace as a, kind of broad strokes, right? Consider why other generations are the way they are, in what they think, feel, say, and how they work, and be more empathetic in how I work and communicate with them. So this is something that person doesn't feel like they were doing before, that they're now capable of doing as a result of being in that NAMA session on Thursday. Take the time to listen to my coworkers of different generations and about how we can work better together. Communication before projects. I think what they meant by this was figure out before this project starts, or when the project starts, how we're going to communicate with each other so we can reduce frustration and make sure that those channels are clear from the outset. Really just consider the different preferences each generation has. Spend more time finding out what people on the team like to do or would like to learn to do. Be more understanding and supportive of other generations' needs and preferences. Be explicit with my Gen Zers on skills they need and what those skills look like. I want to come back to this one. This one is super important, not just for Gen Z, but for everybody. Try to incorporate fun into the projects and ask how each person feels or where each person feels they can contribute. This one's a little harder to read because it's written in pencil, but it says, I could talk to my team to get to know their talents and strengths on a personal and professional level. That is so important if you're a leader. Take active steps to learn how my team members prefer to work. Also, very important if you're a leader, right? Get to know your individuals. Ask everyone how they work best and what they need to be successful when starting a project. Be intentional about working together across generations. Actually, plan how to communicate. That's huge. Engage on a personal level, connect on a personal level, and not just on tactical and work things. So as you can see, there were a lot. I think that was the last one. Nope, one more. Create work plans to work between me and my employees for our generations to best work together, and ask what communication channels they prefer ahead of time. So as you can see, there were a lot of takeaways. This was a 1-hour session. We had about 75 people in the room, I think maybe 80 people in the room. There were a lot of takeaways, and everybody got something a little bit different out of the event. But the one that stood out to me was this: be explicit about what you want people to do. And this person was focused on Gen Z, but I want this to be a takeaway for anybody in leadership in any organization, whether it's a volunteer organization, whether it's a corporation. We have to be explicit about what we want people to do. Now, as I was reading through these on my own after the event, I was, that's my favorite part, right? Is figuring out like, oh, what did people hear? What are they going to do? What impact did we have? You know, in the room, but also just as a conference overall. And as I was reading some of these, I thought, wow, I can't believe people weren't doing this already. Right. And I thought about that for a little bit. I was like, well, that makes sense because especially during the pandemic, but even before that, um, you know, organizations have not been holding as many conferences because you just couldn't logistically with the pandemic. People tend to check out on Zoom a little bit, so sometimes we don't get as much in the way of practical learning if we're not live and in person and really focused on this. Um, but also, a lot of companies have dialed back their investment in training, developing, and nurturing employee growth and nurturing professional and personal development. And so, it's not surprising to me that leaders are feeling a little lost. They're feeling a little confused. They've not changed the way they've led because they haven't been instructed on how to do so. And I talked last week about if you do what you always do, you won't get what you've always gotten because the world has changed. And if you do what you always do, you're actually in for a rude awakening because those same efforts will not produce the same results if everything around you changes. Well, I think what's happening in a lot of these workplaces is leaders are leading the same way they always did because they've not been shown a way to lead differently. And in organizations that have struggled to retain employees or attract new employees or really get the kinds of results that they're looking for, they may want to go back and look at, did we drop the ball on preparing our leaders, from executives down through senior leadership, middle management, frontline leaders, even aspiring leaders among the individual contributor ranks? Have we dialed back on how much we're investing in their education, their training, their professional development? Because if you've done that, it's time to kick that up. Something like 80% of millennials and Gen Z professionals say if a company doesn't invest in their professional advancement, they're going to be gone, right? They're out the door. And so it's really important, not just for them, but for the people that are managing them, the people that are leading in those organizations, to have the tools they need to be successful, to have explicit action-based practical steps they can take to engage and retain the workforce. Now, I've been talking about that for a while. Inclusive leadership is all about keeping people around. And if this is something that your organization struggles with, please grab a spot on my calendar. Let's talk about how we can turn the tide, how we can turn around turnover, right? You can go to workwithlaal.com lead@anylevel.com, workwithlead@anylevel.com. You can, reach out to me on social media. Tell me how you're struggling with this in your organization in the comments. I would love to hear about that. Share this with the people that schedule the leadership development in your organization. Schedule it or share it with the conference organizers so they know how important this is, how important their work is, because this is the kind of impact, right? This is the kind of impact we can have, but we can only have the impact if we actually offer the tools to our people that they need to be successful. Now, if you're a conference organizer and you want to see results like this and you want this kind of immediate feedback from your audience, let me know. So what I do with these, just so you're aware, if you've ever been in my audience, or if you've ever been a conference organizer and you wonder what I do with these, I do a few things with these. This is the first time I've ever done a live video reading them out loud. But what I do with them, number one, is I read through them because I want to make sure that what I promised the conference organizer, or what I promised the company that brought me in, is actually what I delivered. So I want to know, did they hear what I thought I said? Because that's really important, right? You hire a speaker, you hire a trainer, you hire a consultant to deliver a certain result, and I want to make sure just internally that's what I accomplished. I also use this to figure out, where are people struggling? Where could I, come back and help go a little bit deeper in certain areas? A 1 hour conference session is great, but it's an overview. It's to create awareness. And if we can create some behavior changes, that's great, but we need to come back and really make sure that those behavior changes stick through ongoing engagement, ongoing touch points, ongoing education. The next thing I do with them is I actually compile these into a list, and I send the list back to the conference organizer or the person that brought me into the company to say, hey, this is the impact we had together. This is what your folks heard. This is how they're going to change. This is how their organizations or their teams are going to be impacted by the work that we did together in the hour or the half day or the full day or the multi-day training that we did. This is what's going to change. This is what to look for. And this is what you can be proud of, frankly, for, having made this investment in the people that you want to affect and the people that you want to nurture and grow. I also will share these. You'll see these on social media as a reminder, not just about what I'm capable of doing when I come to speak to your organization, which is great, but also each one of these is a very practical tip that you can implement in your workplace, that your managers can implement in the workplace, that your aspiring leaders can latch onto as examples of best practices of things that they can do. So if you're not already following me on LinkedIn or Twitter, please do so, because you're going to see these tips in my feed. There are 19 of these that are going to be coming out probably, every day for the next few weeks. And so you'll get these tips, you'll get these reminders, but also, I use this to inform what else is out there, what's going on, what problems do we still need to solve. And so just know that if you hire a professional speaker for your conference, if you hire somebody to come in from the outside and do training or to consult with your company, we really do care about the impacts that we're having. And yes, it's great to be live. It's great to be back in person. It's great to be on a stage again and shake hands with people and, read the body language in the room and feel that energy from the people that you've gathered together to elevate your industry or to elevate your company. But the real value of these sessions is not just the feel good that we have when we connect with other people. It's these real results, these real takeaways that people are going to have. If you want these kinds of results, if you want to have this kind of impact in your organization, for your association, for your company, please let's talk about what that might look like. You can schedule time on my calendar, at workwithlaal.com. Again, that's workwithlaal.com. LAAL is for lead at any level. So if you want to work with me, schedule some time there. We'll talk about what's the right fit for your organization. Maybe it's a keynote, maybe it's a workshop like I did with NAMA. Maybe I come in for a half day or a full day and really deep dive with your folks. maybe there are assessments or training, or I'm sorry, assessments or some other tools that we can use to try to figure out broadly what's going on so that we can work together, deeply over the course of, instead of a day or a week, maybe over the course of a year. But whatever you're struggling with in terms of your talent retention, your employee engagement, let me know if I can help, because this is something that is so important. And I'm going to tell you what I told my audience on Thursday. At the end of the day, everybody has access to almost the same technologies. Every company has access to almost the same, um, processes and workflows and lean methodologies and agile methodologies, right? We can iteratively or even exponentially improve those things within our companies. But really, ultimately, the only competitive advantage any organization has is its people. So if you're not investing in your people, but you're investing in your software and you're investing in your hardware and you're investing in your office space and you're investing everywhere else, just know that may help you. But if you want to have a long-term, sustainable competitive advantage, the only way to do that is to invest in the people that you have in your organization. So I want to congratulate NAMA for doing such a wonderful job of that. I want to congratulate your organization if you're doing a great job. But if you're one of the many organizations, associations, companies, small businesses that has kind of taken your foot off the gas on investing in your people, I'm going to tell you that you are going to be left behind, because there are great organizations out there like NAMA that are investing in their members. The sponsors of those organizations are investing in their employees by sending them and by making sure that these messages get heard. And so if it's not you, you're falling behind and you're going to lose any advantage you have with your people. Because if your people don't feel invested in, if your people don't feel valued, they're going to go become a competitive advantage somewhere else. So let's talk. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for indulging me in this readout. I am thrilled beyond measure of the impact that we had together this week. And I really want to continue to to engage, to inspire, but also just to, help people make these little shifts in their behavior so they can have the kinds of impacts that we want leaders to have in our organizations. That's it for me. Thank you all so much. I'll see you hopefully on my calendar at workwithlaal.com. And I will see you next Monday live at 11 o'clock Eastern on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Thanks so much.